Hello YouTube, Ronan Kazi, Coast Recon Breakpoint. So sometimes you got to wonder, why don't I just keep playing the Division? Why don't I just keep playing Diablo 4 and so on? Well, one of the things, or Destiny, while those three games are great and I like the playthrough, I want to tell you about the thing I don't like about those games. Once you reach a certain level of proficiency, and once you try the harder content, then it's just a race to get to level 100. A long time ago, if you look at the channel, one of my best videos is, first off, skydiving's the best, especially when you're doing it in Ghost Recon. If you look at my best video, it's the why help other players in the Division 2. And it got about, at the last time I looked at it, has about 8,000 or 9,000 views on it, which is really small compared to other people. But for my small channel, it was great. And what that video was about was that I got to Shepherd level 99. It stopped. I probably would have been about 135, maybe 140 if they would have just let me keep going. And that's really was the first videos I started making, was when I was in 100 and like season 9. Season 10, I did it again. But at a certain point, that's just a nice round number to get to. It's levels in Diablo. When I've beat everyone in Diablo, what's the challenge now for me to get to level 100? I'd like to get to level 100 just as part of the completist, but it's so long to get there. What's the point? I'd be better off doing a hardcore mode, because that's harder content. That's way harder content. So why am I playing, oh, look at me, level 34. Why am I playing Ghost Recon? Because it's in that rotation of games. It's a game that I had to pay for once, and I can play whenever I want. It's a lot slower pace than maybe the Division 2. I don't have it set on the hardest levels. I just like going in and doing content. I like, or just playing for that matter. Same thing with Destiny. I really felt that was a grind. Now, here's the great thing that happened with Destiny. I got to play with fellow YouTubers, Sloth Moods and Ultimate Shield 340. Ultimate Shield 340 still making videos. Please check out his channel, Ultimate Shield 340. Great stuff. But at a certain point, you just keep grinding and grinding and grinding. And it doesn't matter whether the difference is 80 to 100 or it's power level 1800 to 1815. I'm not a super big fan of that. I want to have fun. I want to play the game with friends and other people. But I think they used to call that EPing. I don't need to grow that. And so I have a lot of different games that I'm interested in playing and going through. I absolutely love when you get to a certain point and you do hard content. I enjoy that. But do I enjoy grinding? There's some part of all these games I enjoy grinding. Speaking of grinding, this is normally when I ask you to like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, comment, hit the notifications if you can help me grow. Was going to work on the laptop video this weekend. I didn't. I'm thinking about it. So, basically it comes down to framing what a laptop is supposed to do for me. That's a lot of the video. And then telling you how this performs. And in general, I think you'll get something out of it because if you think of it in some of the ways that I'm thinking about it, you'll say, oh, okay, I can understand why I might want to do that. And really what I might start off first is kind of my setup, because I have a bunch of pieces that make it easy to work with. It makes that other situation stand out, because whatever, I'll cover that in a different video. But anyways, so I have a bunch of different games that I would play. World of Warcraft, I think I've gotten every expansion in that. And I level my character up to a certain point. But this is another dumb thing. Instead of either letting me buy the mounts so I can fly around the realm or do whatever, they make it really hard in some of the expansions to be able to fly. And that I could fly before, but I can't fly now because you just have some stupid mechanic, because I'm going to get done with the game and you're afraid I'm not going to play and I'm going to cancel my sub. And that's on those games, I'm really not a big fan of that. They always got to create new content for you to keep paying the subscription. That's why I prefer games like Ghost Recon, The Division, all these other games that you see us playing, Destiny 2. I don't mind spending money on a game if I'm going to get some use out of it. And I don't necessarily, if I was a person, look, Counter-Strike is a game that has been on and on. The graphics are so dated, but people still play that because it's a fun game to play. I'm going to steal me another helicopter. Going to let one of my buddies out of here first. So that's one of the reasons why I play these different games. In The Division, I'm running legendaries. In the last video I did, I talked about, things they could do to spruce that up. They could open up the dark zone, make it the hardest content, make the dark zone permanently legendary, make it that kind of hard, and do that and get rid of the PvP. And if people want a PvP, let them PvP at night. Have a day-night cycle. That's a brilliant thing they did in their other game. The other thing these games could do for replayability is, kind of like they try to do with Descent, but that's a horrible thing. Check out my other video. I'm pointing above my shoulder, but I'm not going to put that in there. I want to be able to take some of these games and just play it however I want to play it. Set up scenarios. The thing I liked about Ghost Recon, there was so many quests. I don't want to do all the quests. I want to jump out of the airplane. So what am I doing now? So now what I said is, let me jump out of the plane and see if I can land on a building and fight from there. Now, I didn't check out whether these were worthwhile buildings to jump to. They look like little power plants or something. So as I'm coming down, I'm like, okay, let me find a place to land. So I'm going to land on that white building. I was going to land on those big structures, but I think that's probably a horrible spot. Maybe I could have laid and sniped. And let's see if I can land on this building. I mean, look how obvious that would be if you're parachuting down, but middle of the day and everything. But there I am. So that's why I play some of these games, and I like having some of those games in reserve to play. Diablo 4, I'm at the same thing. Now I like playing my alts, and normally what gives a game longevity for me is playing different alts or doing different builds. But after a while, like in the Division 2, like I ended up having 3 accounts. I had 2 of the accounts that had maxed out with 4 characters. They were all the highest level, and I put all the same build. There's nothing else I can do. When they'd have new content, I would do it. Destiny 2, I would buy the new season. I would do the story. That's interesting to me. But then after that, grinding up, not so interesting. Star Wars Old Republic was a game that had a lot of story, so that there was a story each time that you were doing, so that was kind of interesting, and you could do that with different classes. So I don't mind doing things with different classes. but grinding up to get better gear to do what? To play harder content. So that's like an artificial thing. I'm going to play the hardest content in the game, but you won't let me just go right to that hardest content. That's why I like hardcore modes. That's probably what I'm going to do when I get off recording the audio for this. I'm going to feed the dogs. And then I am going to probably start a hardcore character because that's a lot harder. Having seen Sloth Mood, the person that I run with a lot, that seems pretty unkillable. So, and I got a couple pieces on my Necro that I can see why his guy's unkillable. So that's why you see these different games. I would do a real-time strategy game. Those seem really boring, but maybe I would do that. I know there's games like Total War. I never played that. My son played it. He loved it. And again, like I told you, I'm using this kind of as a vehicle to talk to you about different things. And there's Roxy. And I will probably start talking about more tech things and more things that interest me. I mean, right now, one of the biggest things that stood everything up on its head is the James Webb Telescope. Basically, what that has done is looked further into the past than we ever seen before. And because they found galaxies where they didn't, their models didn't predict galaxies. You know, when you listen to this, some of the scientists talk about it. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Well, if your model didn't predict it and they're there, then your model's wrong, which means you don't know what the F you're doing. And you might have some of the stuff right, but then now you're going to try to glom on to keep your model, and now you're going to hodgepodge it. When you have a bad summation of how the situation, let's say you're dating someone and, you know, you find them chatting with someone on their messenger or they got someone else's phone calls in their phone, chances are. But some people turn a blind eye to that. So that's what those scientists are doing. Got to be brave and say, well, maybe we don't understand. And again, if you ever want to read a great book on this, read Black Swan. I'll talk about that again more because that's another one of these Black Swan things. Thanks, YouTube. Talk to you soon. Ronan Kazi out.